Let's do it. What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit differently in what might become a new series that I'm going to be calling Crowdfunding Countdown, after the Board Game Geek category of the same name. And the basic premise is this. There's always a lot of coverage surrounding Kickstarter games when they launch because everyone wants to get that initial buzz, and nowadays it seems like a Kickstarter will not be successful if it does not fund within the first 48 hours. But it's often hard to determine whether or not it's a good back just based upon value and stretch goals and whatever until closer to the end of the campaign. So what I'm doing with this is I'm taking a look at campaigns that are within 1 week of finishing. If you all decide you like this and want me to keep this going, I'll probably do it on a weekly basis. And just take a look at all the campaigns that are listed currently on Board Game Geek or anywhere else I can find them that are finishing within the next week and seeing what they look like, breaking down the games a little bit, going through the rules, and giving you a feeling of what the game might be in order to decide if you want to look into it further or not. Especially in this time frame where things are ending or things are close to ending, if that makes sense. And so what I've done is I've looked through all these campaigns for you, read through all of their rule books if they have them available. Luckily this week was pretty good. Most had rule books readily available, which is great. As you know, that helps me get a sense of if I'll like it or not. And I'm just gonna share my thoughts about what's out there, starting with what's going to be ending soonest. So I was gonna put this off till next week as well, but there are a lot of campaigns that, at least for me and my circles, have generated a bit of buzz, and I wanted to take a look at them in case you weren't aware of what they're all about. So starting with Coalitions by Phalanx Games, and the deadline to back is Wednesday, July 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Plays 1 to 6 players, and it's about this. All of Europe is in arms against revolutionary France. Will you guide France to greatness or exert the most influence upon Europe yourself? When you play Coalitions, you decide the destiny of Europe, and your decisions will make history. That's the blurb. I don't know what sort of voice I was doing there. It certainly wasn't French, which is fitting for a game that takes place in Napoleonic Europe. So Napoleon is fighting everyone, and if you're France, you want to win, and if you're not France, you want to exert the most influence over Europe, and then you win, basically. This isn't a one versus all, but a competitive, historical area control with a bunch of diplomacy, it looks like. And with diplomacy comes negotiation. With somewhat of a mechanical twist, you don't actually get to decide your action, but it is determined by the Wheel of War, which is a rondel that continually rotates every turn and gives each nation a chance at a different action. You're going to take all these actions, everyone's going to take the actions, the same actions, but in a different order. There's also the idea that during your movement phase, you're allowed to move only once, unless someone else around the table that you choose allows you to continue moving, which they'll obviously only help you do if you help them down the line. And thus, coalitions are formed. I think both of these things are really neat, and honestly, the art made me very unenthusiastic to check this out. And I was pretty reluctant, actually, to start off this series of videos with this, what I thought was kind of bland. But having looked into it, I'm really on the fence as to whether or not I should back it. It looks pretty neat. I love new mechanics and mechanics that push the boundaries, and the Wheel of War seems really unique to me, at least, and really encourages that sort of pre-planning. So the pros of backing, and there are a few, you get a lot of content. You get a 7th player expansion and a new board and a bunch of other little unlocks. I'm unsure if you can play with the new board with 7 players. I assume it's just so that the map is less crowded and that you can have a place to play 7 players with, but it's there. It also offers a competitive solo and co-op mode, which I know a lot of people look forward to. In the solo and co-op, you're just playing against France. And there's also a base pledge with meeples and a deluxe version with miniatures, so there's something for everyone. Which, if you tuned into my Table Talk or Table Talkback videos, that was brought up by the community as something that people desire, and Coalitions is giving it to you. And also, judging by Rocketmen, which is one of the only other campaigns that I'm fairly familiar with, it's probably going to be cheaper or about the same as you would pick it up in retail. But you get this extra stuff, so seems like pretty decent value if you're interested in it. Now the cons in the rule book, it says multiple nations can tie and win together, but then it also says, but one of you is kind of lesser in the victory. in which case, like, why even have that be a rule? Obviously, it's a work in progress. This is a tiny thing. But there are also going to be lots of little bits and little rules that you're going to forget, and reading through it, it's fairly complex and involved, and there's going to be a lot of those tiny instances that you have to remember. If someone's here, they do that. So if that's not sort of your style, or you're not interested in the negotiations and the downtime that can come with other people negotiating and you not really having a stake in that fight, this may not be for you either. Or if you don't like the theme, it might be bland for you. Maybe you prefer something more exciting from that time period, like gathering resources and converting them to points. But if you like diplomacy, this seems like one that you may want to check out and give potentially a second look, because I completely overlooked it. And it seems actually pretty neat. And I say that quite begrudgingly. So moving along, we have up next the Warehouse 13 H.G.Wells expansion. I've never seen Warehouse 13. I've never even heard of the board game. But I do love H.G.Wells. Not necessarily for his novels, but for his being portrayed by Paul F. Tompkins on the Dead Authors podcast. You can get Warehouse 13, the original base game, and the expansion, and an exclusive character for $100 US, which seems outrageous to me. I generally don't have a lot of faith whenever the IP is taken from a TV show. Often I feel they just rely on the IP and they don't necessarily work on the game. But I've been wrong before, and we all know Battlestar Galactica is known to be a pretty incredible game. Anyway, this is no interest to me. And since it's an expansion, it's pretty clear who the target audience is. It's been funded though, so that should tell you something. There are existing Warehouse 13 people who like the game enough to want more. So if that's one of you, and you've played the game before, let me know in the comments, because it's over 145% funded, which is good for you, Warehouse 13. But I'm not gonna get you. Moving along, we have Heckin Hounds, which is a trick-taking game where you're dog walkers for Hades. Incredible. But you don't want to be too good, or you'll get promoted and have to go permanently live in hell, and you don't want to be too bad, or else you'll become permanent dog food for the dogs. Thus, Heckin Hounds is a game of being barely adequate, which is perfect for me since that's how I try to live my life. I mean, the theme is really funny. The artwork is super cute, appeals to me at least. It's got that cartoony feel for it, which suits to humor. They also have a rulebook on their Kickstarter, which is great. You can go check that out for yourself and read it, see if it interests you. It's pretty good, although some of the terminology is unnecessary. I mean, just call it a deck. You don't have to call it a kennel. But basically, the gameplay is like anti-Hanabi. You can see everyone's cards except for your own, but you're going to have to predict how many tricks you're going to win. And there's also a shift leader each round that gives you clues that are as unhelpful as possible. So you'll know a bit of information about your cards and then have to deduce from the other mutts around the table. If you win more tricks than you bid, that's unpaid overtime, which Hades loves. You're closer to a promotion. If you don't show up for work, you're going to be in Hades' bad books, which is horrible. It's $26 US, 33 Canadian. Shipping seems pretty decent. Plays 2 to 7, which is a nice wide range, but in the rulebook there's also that dreaded 2-player variant, aka you're not going to play this with 2 players. Let's be real. You can also try it out for free on Screen Top. There's a link to it in the campaign. I've never heard of this platform before, but I love it when you can demo the game and see if it's something you might enjoy. And that deadline is Thursday, July 15th at 8:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Next up, we have Scarface 1920. And if you haven't heard of Scarface 1920 by now, well then you obviously must not be living inside my computer, because it is the only thing, quite literally, that I've gotten advertisements for over its 30-day campaign. I can't remember a single other ad, other than that dungeon crawler that uses your beer as health points, which is kind of funny. Anyway, Scarface 1920 looks pretty neat, but it is ridiculously expensive. After shipping, it's going to cost me like $200 Canadian. So there are more expensive Kickstarters out there, don't get me wrong. That's just for the base pledge though. So it's almost at $1 million Canadian, so not quite there in time for me to do a 5 reasons why you shouldn't back. Plus, I don't know if I'm ever going to do one of those videos for first-time publishers because it's a tough industry. But then again, if there are reasons that I can think of, you all matter to me more than the publishers, so never say never, I guess. Anyway, if you have the money, it does look really cool. The components look gorgeous. You've got all these little plastic alcohol barrels and little guns for your resources. The minis have a bunch of different sculpts that have been unlocked. Pretty great for a first-time publisher who's unproven in this sort of sphere. I guess you could take that two ways, either support a first-time publisher or be wary of them. There is a rule book if you want to check it out, and while it's still a draft, it looks like it could be printed right away. Really well written as far as I can tell. I got a pretty good sense of how it's played. I love that your money is hidden. The person with the most money at the end of the game wins, and it seems like you can do a lot in a round. You can play more cards, but then your crime rating kind of goes up. But when a single player is out of cards in their deck, they move the round tracker forward. So it pays to be more aggressive in this game rather than hold onto your cards for the right moment, which I think is going to provide a really neat sort of back and forth that you have to wrestle with yourself, in addition to dealing with the area control of everybody else, right? But yeah, that's the mechanic that kind of stands out to me in terms of what's interesting. This is one, honestly, that the amount of advertising turned me off because I kept seeing it everywhere, and the price was and is so kind of inaccessible to me that I never was really considering it, to be honest. But the rulebook does make me think about giving it a shot at retail. I think right now, if I want my Mafia fix, I can go ahead and buy Corleone's Empire, which is by Eric Lang, who's a designer who I really enjoy, whose stuff I know I enjoy, and I'd get it for less than half the price of what this one's going for. But as far as production quality and rave reviews, this one's got it in spades. In terms of the stretch goals that have been unlocked, you're also getting a little mini expansion with 3 figures, but the stretch goal that stands out to me in terms of justifying it to yourself, I guess, if you're on the fence, is the game tray organization, because I love their organizational systems, and apparently that won't be in the retail box. I'm not sure why that is, but it won't. So there you go. For me, it's still too expensive, but the quality does look nice. So if money's no object, check it out. I mean, I'm sure you have. It has been around for so long, and I've gotten so many ads. Anyway, your deadline to decide is Thursday the 15th at 11:59 Eastern Time. Next, we have Winterhaven Woods. This is a family drafting and set collection card game for 1 to 6 players. Plays in about 15 to 20 minutes, it says, so it's your light filler, you know? The cards and the art here really do look nice, but if you've played one set collection game, I feel like you've kind of played them all. This one to me doesn't really seem like it's innovating the genre, but it does seem pretty solid if that's your kind of thing and that's what you're looking for. What makes this one stand out, I know I just said it didn't, but the slight difference is that you don't reveal your cards until they're all drafted, so people can't pick up on your strategy, and there are also environments that you can draft, and then you reveal your little critters who can hide in the woods, and then you reveal your sneaky critters who can steal critters from other people, and then you reveal your predators who can eat critters. So there's this whole food chain element and like tableau building that you're doing. So if you love set collection like Sushi Go, or you wanted something like that in your collection and wanted to support an indie designer, this seems like a pretty inoffensive choice, I think would be a good word. What I really love about this one is that they emphasize that there's going to be no plastic. So the cards are going to be wrapped in paper. Maybe the outside will have plastic, I don't know, but they're trying to be eco-friendly with this sort of forest theme, which I really appreciate. And in terms of stretch goals, you have a few more extra cards, which will add to the variance. I don't see this being available at retail, so pick it up if it interests you. But I do love the no plastic. It makes me want to almost back it on the spot because, yeah, there's a lot of waste in this industry, and anytime a publisher or a designer goes out of their way to try to combat that, that really resonates with me personally, and I like supporting that sort of thing. So the deadline for that is Thursday night at 9:30 p.m., Thursday the 15th. And speaking of eco-friendly, our next one is Forest of Pangaia. This one you have until 4 a.m. Friday morning, so basically Thursday night. And this is another great eco-friendly game, 2 to 4 players, 40 to 60 minutes. You're competing to see who can grow the world the most, infusing the land with rituals to produce trees and get life energy, and whichever spirit of the forest has collected the most life energy at the end of the game wins. But the little wooden trees and the spirits look gorgeous. You're going to be building up trees so that they can just scatter their seeds. Just sow and scatter your seeds everywhere. I don't know why that isn't the tagline for the game. And you expand almost Ticket to Ride like from different energy types to another to complete these specific rituals and get points for however many trees are in your chain, basically. It's a little expensive for me at 73 bucks Canadian is what it works out to. But for this type of elegant wood design, it might be worth it for you. The gameplay looks like it's going to be pretty easy to pick up for people and still have a decent depth of strategy. And it also won't be available at retail. This is the only place you'll be able to get it on Kickstarter because it's their first project. Although they have just blown it out of the water with their funding goal. They're the most past their funding goal out of anyone else on this list, including Scarface, if you look at it by percentage, which is something to note. There are a lot of people who are excited and interested in this. I also love that they're being eco-friendly, having a cardboard insert instead of a plastic one, which is so cool. But even better than that, they've hit a stretch goal at which they are going to be fully sustainable and carbon dioxide neutral, CO2 neutral. And it makes me want to support it just because of that. These steps that board games are making to become more carbon neutral and eco-friendly are just, I think, just a huge right step that we're taking in the hobby. And I really hope more companies elect to go down that route. So if that sounds cool or looks interesting to you, check it out. Again, all the links for this I'll put in the description below. Just for you. Make it easy. One click. One click, and then you're only a couple clicks away to throwing your whole wallet down the toilet. Next up, we have the Great Race 2, which finishes Saturday, July 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Place yourself in the early 1930s, in a time of challenges and a world that always admires adventurers. That's their tagline. That's how they let you know what type of game it is. You're going to select drivers to race across the country, but there are no roads.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
So to uncover the roads, you got to reach in a bag and reveal terrain as you go. So it's kind of random there. I mean, if you couldn't tell, the theme doesn't appeal to me at all. I'd never heard of Great Race 1, which apparently funded recently, but was really only available in France. So they're doing this as a reprint of Great Race 1, but also with Great Race 2, but also with an expansion that's only good for Great Race 1, and then you have an expansion that's good for the two of them that goes along with this standalone expansion, which could be combined with elements from Great Race 1. It is a confusing mess of a Kickstarter page, to be honest. And if I wasn't looking into it for all of you, I would have just quit it immediately and never looked at it again. But if you keep scrolling, there's a graph that tells you kind of what you should back, which of the 12 pledge levels is right for you. And they do have a rule book, but I only noticed a rule book for the first Great Race, which according to the graph, the newer Great Race is for more hardcore gamers. And honestly, even that rulebook isn't very well written. I didn't get that far into this one, to be honest. For example, there's a point where it says, hey, you hide your assistants behind your screen because you're choosing secret actions, which I think is cool. And then it never tells you when you remove that screen. It just says, oh, now you can play assistants. So it's assumed you can remove those screens, but it's just those little moments of clarity just don't inspire faith in me that this game will be clear and easy to learn and easy to play, you know? When you can't make kind of a simple thing of remove the screen, it doesn't sit well with me. But I guess if you like cars in the 1930s and adventuring, you might like it. Or if you played the first one, you might like it. If anybody here played the first one or heard of it, let me know in the comments below. I'm very interested. Let us know if it's a good game or not, because right now I think it's just... Here I thought I was going to be too positive about all these Kickstarters that are ending this week, because a lot of them are pretty cool. And my current shtick is I'm the guy who says don't spend money, so... But at the same time, games excite me, you know? There's a reason I'm making content for this channel, and that's because I generally can find something interesting to like about most games, and also could be critical of them. Anyway, let me know if someone has played it, and if it's any good, let us know in the comments below, because I've already spent too much time on it, and I don't want to anymore. Moving on. Also funding Saturday night, maybe, is Sham Bo. This one hasn't funded yet. It's not looking good, but it's got a week, so figured I'd mention it. It's for 2 players, 30 to 45 minutes, and it is rock, paper, scissors, corridor. if you've ever played Corridor, those Quarto games. I initially thought chess, but it is too simple to be compared to chess, I think. Now this game jumped out to me because of the line in Hamilton.
Hercules Mulligan, don't need no introduction when you knock me down, I get the
Nope, not that one. No. Not that one. They have a really confusing how to play video, at least it was for me, but luckily the graphics give you everything that you need to know, or there is a rulebook as well, and it's like 4 pages. Basically, you have 2 of each symbol: rock, paper, scissors, row, sham, and bow. And on your turn, you have 2 movement points that you can spend moving any piece 1 spot in one orthogonal direction. Every round, a new artifact will appear somewhere on the board, and whoever gets to it gets to draw 2 cards and pick who gets which one. When your piece is next to an opposing piece, you can attack them, which is just rolling dice. But if you're beating them in the rock, paper, scissors battle, you get to roll 2 dice, and they only get to roll 1. Or you just both roll 1. I mean, the pros for this is the pieces look really fun, the art's solid, and the box organization is so sexy, it makes me want to buy it on the damn spot. Plus, it's free shipping to the US, which is incredible if you live in the US. It's also on Tabletopia, which again, I love when that happens so that there's a free way for you to try it out before spending your money. I think that's great. On the con side, all the pieces move the same way. I mean, I haven't played it, right? This is just my educated guess, but it feels like it's just going to be plodding along with those 2 movement points. So really, it'll be all about grabbing those artifacts and using those extra bonuses to attack your opponent, which sounds interesting. But then also how the pieces are set up from the beginning, you kind of know that the scissors are going to be the best piece, and so then you're all going to have to prioritize taking out the rocks. And then I guess the scissors take out the paper who are trying to take out the rocks. There's also a terrain side that none of the cards relate to different terrains, so it's not really a new board, I don't think. It's just a board that makes it more difficult putting the artifacts down. There might be some terrain rules. I would assume that there would be terrain rules, but it doesn't currently look like it. Anyway, that's Sham Bo. Check it out if you want. God, check it out just for the box design. All games should be that efficient. Finally, we have Battlefish, which is ending next Monday morning at 10:45 a.m. This is created by a person named Tyler Smith, and he did something that I haven't seen many creators do. And it has worked out pretty well for him. And I think if you're a small-time creator who's thinking about getting into the Kickstarter, take note of this. He had a print-and-play campaign back in July 2020 for an incredibly low funding goal. And he didn't have that many backers, but he had enough to get a print-and-play version out there and also get an online version out there. And that clearly helped generate buzz and get the word out. And he probably had a bunch of these people sign up for notifications when it launched, which is really smart and good on you, and resulted in being about 250% funded. Pretty great success for a small card game in a big box. The game seems funny. The first line of the campaign is, "After thousands of years of submitting to a corrupt system that those in power called natural selection, a group of fish known simply as the rebels finally said, 'Enough is enough.' And with that, the first Battlefish was created." I mean, it sets the tone for the game, right? 2 to 6 players, 40 to 60 minutes, ages 8 to 98. So if you're 99, sorry, Granny, you're out of the Battle Bridge Fish Club. So you're supporting ageism. I'm getting loopy. I've been at this for a while. I can see why people don't cover these sorts of things in depth, but I'm committed to reading through all of the rule books, or most of them, so I can hopefully distill it for you and save you time and trouble. That's what I'm going to try to do with these videos. It's described as a capture the flag game, which is neat. Already piques my interest before I read the rules, especially at a player count more than 2. There are also rules for team mode at 4 or 6, but I think I'd probably not have teams because I skipped kindergarten and I never learned how to share. However, the team mode does seem significantly quicker, so an option. The gameplay reminds me a lot of Bang without a hidden role, in that you can just attack the people to your left or your right. But basically you have a bunch of cards with which you can use to attack other people, or you can use them to fortify your defenses and then they get triggered and flipped over when people attack you. In a game like this, it's all going to come down to the cards and how fun it feels to play them. And unfortunately, it seems like Most of the cards are just basic number values, which might be interesting to keep track of because you have to choose if you commit more to attack or defense if everybody has the same stats. But I think I wish there were more cards that had powers on them. There are a few because that feels like it would be more fun and dynamic, kind of more epic Spell Wars, where every card is an attack but does a different thing. I don't know. That seems a little bit more dynamic than Battlefish. Or maybe it would be too random. I don't know. It's 30 bucks. So it's actually more than Sham Bo when you think about it after the shipping. And if you're in Canada, it's an additional 30 bucks to ship it because they have giant play mats which you have to put 5 cards on. So no chance in hell. Not for me at least. But if you like Bang and you wanted something that was Bang meets Coup meets Epic Spell Wars meets big numbers, counting cards, I don't know. Check it out. The humor is what really draws me in, and the art is fun. So, and that's it. That's all I have for this week. That should cover us till next week. Please let me know if you like this sort of thing, if you want me to keep doing it. Like I said, there's a lot of coverage for a game when it first hits the crowdfunding sphere, and then it kind of just dissipates. So I'm enjoying taking a look at the things that are kind of out the door. It's kind of interesting to analyze how many of these you may have heard of, and in what degree you've heard of them throughout the duration of their campaign. Luckily, most things have late pledge options by now, and those last for months, so really deadlines aren't that important, but there's never a guarantee with these sorts of things, and I know a few games that don't offer late pledges, so it's always good to check out the FAQs on the ones that you're interested in and make sure that you don't miss out. If you're interested, again, don't buy them just to buy them. If I had to pick one game that I'm the most interested in pursuing, for my tastes, I'm a little torn. It's actually pretty close between two. Heckin Hounds probably coming in second because it just tickles me. And I really enjoy Hanabi, so I can only assume I'll enjoy Anti-Hanabi, or Uncle Hanabi. But surprisingly, it's Coalitions that's coming in first. I really didn't expect to be interested in it based on the theme and the art, but you know me, I'm a sweet little mechanics boy, and there's something about it that makes me think I'd like it. I love the rondel pre-planning concept, so I'd be really interested to see that implemented. I don't know how often I would get it to the table, and if my game group would be even interested in playing it with me, as opposed to some of the others that I already own, just based on their preferences. But yeah, Coalitions is one I'll be thinking about, at least tomorrow. Now, if there's one thing that I think you should back on this list, again, there's nothing. Back what you want, don't back what you don't. There are many games. But assuming you have infinite money, I would say Forests of Pangaia, mainly because of the fully sustainable and carbon neutral stance that they're taking, which I think is just so great. But I also think it's looking like a really solid medium-light game. That 40 to 60 minutes is a nice sweet spot. I think it'd be easy to get to the table, which is key. I think the components would be fun to hold and play with tactilely. It would be nice. Now keep in mind, again, I've never played it, just read the rulebook. But if you're in the market for that sort of thing, maybe take a look at this campaign and see if it interests you. I'm also doing this thing where I'm going to compile as many giveaways as I can find that are out there, since most giveaways usually pertain to Kickstarter games. Anyway, I found that one for Coalitions. I needed to film this before it was too late, so I could start editing it and get it rendered, etc. So a couple of board game groups that I'm a part of on Facebook regularly do these sorts of things, like the Board Game Group and Board Game Revolution. And I actually won one for the Kingdom Rush Elemental Horde game that was just recently on Game Pledge. That's how I know they work, and I know they're not a scam. I will actively seek them out for you, my friends. And of course, when this channel grows larger, I'll just try and get them for you myself, because y'all are the bomb, and who doesn't love getting free stuff? If you know of any current giveaways that are happening for these or even others, always check Board Game Geek. They've got giveaways running. There's a little tab. That's a good place to find them. I'll pin a comment and just put them in the comments below if you found one that other people can enter. But if you haven't already, subscribe so I can get big enough to get you all free stuff. Like this video if you enjoyed it and you'd be interested in this becoming a weekly thing. And if you've done both of those things, well, I love you. And if you're looking for something else to do, take a screenshot of my face and turn it into a blanket for your friend or your enemy. Most likely your enemy. Anyway, that's enough of this nonsense. Until next time, my name's Chris George, and I still don't have a catchphrase, but that's enough of this nonsense. Might be a pretty high contender. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye!